There are some very popular sections that we have had in the past. We have done a section on sale measurement during lunch where John Crowley has done some very extensive training in terms of how to measure sales. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to do that because of all kinds of different reasons. There are, and perhaps Diana can give us a link, but there are videos on the website, Perf Lake Ontario website, that describe sale measurements and how to do sale measurements. And I've been doing this for about 8 years now, 7 years. And every year I say, I'm going to do a sale measurement video and never do. So don't count on it anytime soon. But if we do get around to it, perhaps that will happen. But again, we're going to cover the basics. This is not going to be an extensive in-depth training course on all kinds of details. It will be an overview for each one of you to become a more confident handicapper. And also that you will be able to, any of the sailors out there who are not handicappers may ultimately decide that they want to help us out with the handicapping and or just know how the Perf Lake Ontario or the Perf system is. Maybe somebody would like to become a handicapper that isn't, and at least you will all be able to understand the Perf system better. I know I sit on the porch once in a while and I hear some things, some people talking about Perf, and it's not always clearly understood. So maybe this will help us all figure out how to answer these questions. Okay, I'm going to go into a short history of Perf and the handicapping systems. Early 60s, I believe, Southern California, a group of guys decided that they wanted to pump up their numbers for the Newport Ensenada race. And they said, you know, we kind of know how these boats are sailing. Maybe we can base a handicap on that stuff. So they decided that they would do the formulation of Perf, which is loosely based on the Portsmouth yardstick system. It's spread around the country from a geographic standpoint, northeast or northwest. It went down to Chesapeake, all these places. Perf Lake Ontario, Lake Ontario got wind of this and there's a group of people down on the South Shore. Very interestingly, there is we do have on our website a publishing of the original minutes of this. I think the only person that's part of that group that still sails is Steve Corona, though I could be wrong and I would like to be corrected. But as I said, it's based on how boats sail against each other. There are several advantages to a Perf system, which is one of the reasons why it caught on so quickly. It does not require measurements of the boats. Because of that, it's very inexpensive comparatively. It can be administered locally by volunteers, and it is not based on any design specification. In that case, it does not make boats obsolete. If anybody remembers the old IOR boats, I think the teardrop style boats, the ton boats, and what that rule did to the design of boats, they understand what I'm talking about. There isn't a sailmaker or boat designer worth his salt that can't get around a system if they put their mind to it. Perf is one of those systems that cannot be easily worked around, though some people will say the Perf beater and so on. But by and large, we try to weed those boats out and not have too much of a problem. And then finally, it's relatively easy to understand, though again, some people will say, whoa, you guys are getting way too complicated. But in principle, Perf is an extremely easy to understand. We're going to have goals. Our goals today are to describe to you the basics of Perf, the Perf Lake Ontario Organization, so you know where the pieces fit. We're going to go into the handicapping process, which will include the standard boat, calculating the adjusted speed potential, the ASP, briefly go into what is required in an initial assignment. We'll get into a little bit of the application sheets, the handicappers worksheet, the new online certificate, and then we'll break. That will be our first section. And then we're going to go on to a section that Bill Visser and I will try to work through, which will be Perf Lake Ontario as a class, how the rules apply to Perf Lake Ontario as a class, implementation through the notice of race and sailing instructions, the technical committee and how that is used to enforce the rules. And then finally, as time allows, we'll go on to Perf on the race course, what makes the perfect race, the races that we should be reporting to Perf as opposed to what we would use for our yearly championship. If time allows, we'll get into some divisional splits, time-on-time multiplier, and a little bit of controversy that's going on there, long distance numbers, all kinds of stuff. I know it sounds a little bit ambitious. We may not have time for all of this, but we're going to give it a shot. Okay, the first thing we're going to talk about today is the organizational structure of Perf Lake Ontario. It is divided into three major components. First of all, it is a Canadian organization. We are governed by bylaws. It is divided into three major components. That is the executive, the central council, and the administration. The executive is essentially the business operations of the organization. It handles finances, general direction, what a board of directors would do at a corporation. The central council is responsible for the assignment of numbers and so on. I'm going to turn this over to Brian Thompson and have him explain to us what central council is and what they do for us. Brian?
Yes, thanks, Bill. Might you hear me now? We
can hear you.
Good, excellent. Yeah, so Central Council is the body that administrates the well, the giving of the ratings, but more than that, we try to keep the handbook straight so that you can go into the handbook and find out the stuff that you need to know. We published lots of things, and if you go to our website, you can see them. And Diana keeps that right up to date. And if you're a handicapper, you'll have a login where you can get right in. And in a bit, we're going to be talking about the standard boat. And you could go to the website if you've got a screen up there and take a look at the standard boat dimensions thing in the supplementary of the publications and see what that is. I'll be referring to that later. So we try to do that. And the information we get to do all this stuff comes upwards from the handicappers through the district chiefs and then to Central Council. Another thing when I say we're trying to administrate what's going on, right, the measurement of sales. How do you measure the sale? So that everybody knows how to measure the sale the correct way. And what's a fair way of comparison with that kind of thing. It's a little more complicated when you get into the formulas, but that's the overall thought.
Very good, Brian. Thank you very much. Bill? We then move on to the districts, which is are roughly, I think we have 7 of them. Again, correct, wrong. But 7 districts, which are generally geographic around the lake. I'm gonna throw this to Bill Visser, who is really the only sitting district chief on our panel, though Owen has performed that task in the past. Bill, could you briefly describe what the district chief does and what the districts are responsible for?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. Well, districts basically, the function is, as you look in the handbook, it's called the the Council of District Handicappers is the full title. What we are is basically all of the member clubs in that geographical area. They gather and try to look at doing analysis of existing boats that we have, keep an eye on what's happening, any changes. We also are responsible for doing what we call the initial assessment, which will be talked about later on. We're doing the initial assessments for any new boats, whether it's to the system. If it's new to the area, of course we do that. But if it's doesn't exist in our system yet, well, we're the first ones who have to put together the analysis and come up with an estimate on what the speed potential should be for that vessel. We also are the first ones through an appeal process. I believe towards the end of the day, we're going to be talking about that. The appeal process where it's, the first line is the club handicapper, deal with it at that level. Then from there, if it comes to district, and then after that, if it'll go up to central. But so where our role is to be that intermediary between central council, which looks after the entire lake, and a step, let's call it a step above the club handicapper, provide support to the club handicapper, who was the interface to all of the actual certificate holders or members of the club. That is the Reader's Digest version of what a district does. Bill, back to you.
Great, that's what we're looking for. The third major group is the administration. And we've got the administration. The whole deal is sitting here in front of us. Diana, could you briefly describe what you do?
Thanks, Bill. I will try.
Briefly now.
I know. So it's not just me. I do need to give some credence to Sheena. She does the day-to-day processing of your certificate changes, issuing certificate, uploading them to the website, posting minutes on the website. She really is my right hand. I do the more detailed work connected with projects that Central Council are coming on, consulting with them on things that they can and can't do based on what our database will allow. I update the manuals for them, including I work for the executive side as well, doing the bylaws. I take minutes, like tomorrow we have a Central Council meeting and I will be doing the minutes and getting that prepped and basically pointing Sheena in the right direction on what she needs to do. I'm basically the liaison between the owner or the handicapper and Central Council. So anything a handicapper has a question about usually comes through me, and then I direct it off to Central Council. I'm the one that gets all the admin mail. I do bank deposits and I'm not getting, I could go on and on, but that's pretty much it. So if you need anything, I'm the one that you contact. Your district chiefs are out there. Your handicappers are out there. Utilize them. If you're an owner out there, if you're a handicapper, I'm your point of contact for anything PHRF.
Very good, Diana. I also want to add that she usually figures out what we're going to have for lunch when we meet. So that's an extremely important part of Diana's job. As we've alluded to, the members are not the certificate holders. They are the clubs and individual organizations that we have. Again, these numbers vary all the time, but I believe that we have approximately 60 members, upon which we have 3 handicappers or potentially 3 handicappers each. And in turn, they are supporting the certificate holders or sailors. At this point, again, it varies. I think we have slightly under 1,000 certificate holders, and we have had well over 1,500. I tell a quick story. I went to the US PHRF meeting a couple of years ago, and it was the first time I'd been there, and I'm not sure that every PHRF Ontario had ever been represented. And the guys were sitting around the table from all the different areas, and they were talking about how many they had. And oh, we have a great program. We have 400 certificates, and we have another great program. We have 600 certificates. And somebody pointed at me and asked me how many we had, and I said, well, I think we're around 1,500, and they couldn't believe it. PHRF organizations had never heard of us before, I think. So I think by that count, we are probably the largest PHRF organization in the world. And that's something to be said, and I think we deserve that. I'm gonna get a little bit into finances here. I might have Allison add if she cares to at the end of this. Obviously, finances are important to us, particularly since we've had so many problem years. We've had the high water, the COVID. This year, we may have low water that will prevent people from launching. I believe Brockport is questioning whether they're going to be able to launch because of low water. Who could figure? But the dues keep the organization running, keeps the administration happy. Website pays for reviews, office expenses, everything that goes to managing any organization. But I do want to say, in light of these hardships, we have been trying to encourage the renewal of certificates. There's been a kind of a feeling that if we aren't racing, why should we pay? And some pushback there. I get it. I do. I think Brockport has had 3 years, 2.5 years where we haven't had a full race program. And at least pay the 7 certificates, and if not, we encourage your sailors to get out and race, even if you're using some kind of an odd program which doesn't require perf per certificates. It's all I'm asking. I don't want to put too much of a fine edge on this, but in order for the organization to operate, we do have to have these certificate fees. There are quite a few classes around the country. I know the OK Dinghies and a couple of the others that I'm associated with are in very bad financial shape, and we certainly don't want that to happen to Perf Lake, Ontario. Allison, do you want to add anything or have anything to say? Are you
No,
there?
I don't have anything to add. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Bill.
Great.